So here we are. This is CNET 121. This is the last lecture, Mac Forensics. Next week I'm going to do Velociraptor demos, just demonstrating these projects with the useful Velociraptor tool, which is an instant response tool. And then the week after that we have a radio frequency talk by Caitlin, which I highly recommend. It's worth extra credit and you'll love it. Her talks are always a big hit. And then the last class, I'll just answer questions. We're not going to add any new material. And then the final. So we're pretty much at the end of things here. All these classes are hitting the end. So let's take a look at the Chapter 11 stuff, which starts here. Okay, so this is Macintosh Forensics. So there's been a lot of versions of the Mac. There was something called OS 8 and 7 and 6, which were some weird, horrible thing Apple wrote, and I refused to use Macs in those days. They were like toys. They were just, it was a bizarre graphical-only interface. That's pretty much all extinct now, and they're all OS 10. And OS 10 is based on Unix, which is why I thought this is now worth taking seriously. Apple advertises it as the most advanced operating system in the world, and you could say that. That's not unreasonable to say, based on BSD, Berkeley Standard Distribution, which is definitely one of the older and more established Unix versions. So, and now they have many versions of iOS. The very similar operating system runs on the Mac, the iPod, the iPhone, the Apple Watch, the Apple, there's various smart home speakers and all sorts of gadgets from Apple, Apple TV, Airport, all these things run versions of it. So they had a Macintosh file system in '84 that was replaced with HFS when they went to Unix, and now they have hierarchical file system, and now HFS Plus, and I think it's now JHFS Plus, and then it moved up to APFS. All these file systems went through various generations as they worked on larger and larger volumes. So the most modern one is this one, 64-bit file system, therefore with an enormous number of addressable blocks. And it's got timestamps in nanoseconds, which is kind of nuts. I highly doubt that anything in a computer is actually accurate to the nanosecond. It has strong encryption. The disk is, encryption is turned on by default on the iPhone, and I think on all Macs too. I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure it's on by default on desktop machines. It used to be you'd have to turn it on if you wanted to. And so it uses AES with either XTS or CBC. I think XTS is more common for hard disks because it's an official specification, so multiple users can encrypt files on a hard disk and each get a different key. But anyway, a version of AES, which is very strong. Now it has key bags that contain the encryption information, and there are many layers of encryption and many keys in the Apple file system. So it's got a volume encryption key used to encrypt data blocks, and that has a key encryption key derived from your password. So you have to give it the password. It runs that through a password-based key derivation system to make a key, and it uses that to unlock other keys. All right. iOS uses this many key bags: a backup key bag, device, escrow, iCloud, backup, and user. Many, many keys. So when you enter your password, it creates this key loaded from the user key bag. It gets it from after making a key from the password, and the backup key bag is generated when it creates an encrypted backup, and the escrow key bag is used for mobile device management. And it has a security chip, like the Trusted Platform module. Now they have a thing called the T2 security chip on Mac computers, and the analogous chip on the iPhone is called the Secure Enclave. This is a special cryptographic coprocessor, and that has what's called effaceable storage. And this answers a question I've wondered about for years. When you want to reset your iPhone to sell it, there is a thing called Reset My iPhone to Factory Defaults, and the statement I've heard many people make is that it erases the key and all the encrypted data is now inaccessible. And what I wondered is, how do you know there's not another copy of the key somewhere? And that's what the T2 security chip is for. It stores the key only inside that chip. The key is not directly accessible to the processor at all, so it cannot be copied to the RAM or anything. And that's why there's only one copy of it in a special place, and when you erase it, you really know it's gone. And therefore all that data is gone forever because you don't have the key, and it's AES, which nobody can crack without the key. So that works very well. And it avoids all the other things like wear leveling that would make extra copies of the key. So it stores it somewhere where you know it's not making an extra copy, and you know when you erase it, you really got the only copy. If you stored it out in the normal clusters, there'd be a possibility that cluster would be marked bad, and it would be remapped to another cluster, and when you erased it, you wouldn't really get all the copies of it. But that will not happen inside the T2 security chip. So it also has space sharing, so file systems can share the volumes. You can have a volume that includes multiple physical drives mixed together. And Microsoft has a way of doing that too. Anyway, and you can make a backup of this, which is a snapshot. So if you're in forensic examinations, here's some things to know. Spotlight is this thing up here. They can search on your Mac for things. And it's got a lot of evidence. It's got a lot of evidence for that. It caches data here. If you move files to the trash and then delete them, you cannot recover the file because it no longer has the directory information. The same thing's true on Windows. As you know, you can recover the contents of the file from a magnetic hard drive, but you cannot recover the file name, the owner, or the creation date. That stuff has been destroyed. It has journaling, which is true in all modern operating systems, so that if the operating system crashes, it kept a record of what it was doing, so when it comes back up, it can resume where it left off. A DMG image is what you see a lot when you install software. That is a DD image. It is just a direct copy of binary data like an installer. You can have a sparse image, which is a file that will grow as more files are added, like our virtual machine disks are typically that way. And there's also a sparse bundle. plist files are really important. In Windows, you have the registry, which has all these settings, and we've been there before. It lists all the USB devices that have been plugged in and many other forensic things. And the property list files are what Macs use instead, and there's quite a few of them. And if you just print out a plist file with a text print, you'll see part of it is readable and part of it is unreadable binary, but you can use a plutil tool to extract it and turn it into readable information. There's a sleep image file, which is the same thing as Windows hibernation image that contains the contents of RAM. Now, Mac RAM is compressed, so you cannot do RAM forensics. We did this on Mac, on PC. You just copy the RAM to a file and then search through the RAM. You can't do that so easily on the Mac. The RAM itself contains compressed data, and they keep changing how it's compressed too. So as far as I know, there are no free tools that will let you do RAM analysis on modern versions of OS X. There may be now, but I have been unable to add that to the project for years because all the free tools are badly out of date. So, let me see if there's some question up here. She's great. Well, we're talking available on your website, Twitch, or Zoom. The guest lecture, I want to try to get some garbage off the screen here, if I can get Google to stop popping up ads everywhere. Yeah, the talk will be recorded and available on my page afterwards. It'll be through Zoom. Yeah, also in the classroom, just like me. All right, so, So we got a lot of versions. It started out with Puma in 2001, and now it went up to Catalina in 2019, and now it's a couple later on. They give each of them a colorful name, and they also have a 10-point number. So 10.15 is a few years old, and I don't know what we're up to now. All right, but a lot of things. The Gatekeeper is the feature that enforces code signing, and there are a bunch of Gatekeeper bypasses. There are a bunch of ways to trick it into installing things that aren't signed right. File Vault is the encryption tool with this AES-128 with the XTS system. And therefore, when it's enabled, you really can't get anything without the key. We're true of all full volume file encryption. There is a recovery key that you're supposed to save or print, just like there is in Microsoft's BitLocker. But if you can't get the recovery key or the password, you're pretty much out of luck, unless they actually saved it with Apple. Disk Utility is the tool to repair, format, mount disk volumes. There's a keychain, which is the password manager in Mac OS, and therefore, things you have saved in your user keychain are available when you're logged in. So this is something my penetration tester students have come up with. They can use my machine while it's logged in. They can just dump out the keychain and get all my passwords, just like your password manager. There's an iCloud keychain too, which lets you move your keychain from one device to another. So if you save it on your desktop Mac, it'll go to your iPhone and such. And wow, Google is really annoying. Even when you close the stupid Chrome pop-ups, it just pops up more pop-ups to cover the screen. Man. Anyway, Safari is the browser that keeps track of a lot of things, the native browser. I guess most Mac users use Safari, at least on the iPhone. I don't know about desktops. I bet they probably mostly use Chrome. But anyway, it's got, like any browser, history, cache, cookies, and all that. And there is a target disk mode. You can boot a Mac into target disk mode where it is not booting up the operating system. It's mounting the disk as like an external USB drive. And that's an easy way to copy all the data off the drive. Then there's mobile devices, the iPhone and the iPad and the Apple Watch and all that. running basically a stripped-down version of the same operating system. And so, one thing about Apple is Apple officially does not support anything that is more than 2 versions back. It's all just abandoned. So that makes it really impractical to have Apple devices in corporations. They only really seem to care about the home market for that reason. Anyway, so everything is formatted in APFS, and it's all encrypted at the device level. There's unique device identifier hard-coded into the processor, and Apple does not keep a record of it, so every single phone is encrypted with a different key that Apple does not know, and this is why there was all this scandal about the FBI trying to get into a phone when Apple said, we can't get any encrypted data on a phone, we don't have a copy of the key, we can't get a copy of the key. This is by design. This is Apple likes to advertise that they really protect your privacy, and that means even if you were to take a phone apart and do chip-off forensics where you get a bit-by-bit copy of all the SSD storage, you won't be able to decrypt it. So it's pretty much worthless. Which is the same reason why you can wipe a phone and resell it. The next user really cannot get your personal data off it. Not without your passcode and not after you wipe it. So data protection is the feature that secures your files. It makes a 256-bit key for each file and gives it to the AES engine. And like I say, the master key that's needed is stored in effaceable storage, and when you reset to factory default, it deletes the key, and therefore all that data is lost forever. Now, if you made a backup in iCloud or something, you'd have that, and you could put it on a new phone, or indeed back on the same phone, but anybody with the phone hardware will not be able to get the data off it. Anyway, all right. USB restricted mode prevents it from being unlocked over USB, I think. And like I say, you've got an Apple ID is how you have to get in. All right. So iPod has these folders, kind of pictures, contacts, calendars, music, and so on. And iPad has similar stuff. The iPhone has similar stuff. Here's some stuff you'll see in the iPhone. There's a keyboard cache for autocorrect. Screenshots. When you close an application, it shows a video, a moving picture of that thing shrinking, and therefore it has to store a snapshot of it, and people got upset about this when they thought about it. That means there are snapshots of screenshots of your apps being stored, and those might contain something like a password or confidential data in them. And of course, you've got the usual stuff that we've seen in the projects, photos, GPS data, app data, voicemail, and all that data. So there's a lot of software to image it. Black Bags, now acquired by Cellebrite, and many other devices and software packages which are generally quite expensive. Belkasoft, Magnet Forensics, and many others. So there's a recovery mode in case you were having trouble booting up your iPhone or your Mac. You got Face and Touch ID for biometrics. I mentioned the legal consequences are if you have face or finger biometrics, the police can force you to put your finger on it or point it at your face. But if you have a password, they cannot force you to reveal it. Because of the Constitution, you have the right to not speak, but you do not have the right to hide your face or your finger. So people that don't want the cops searching their stuff are better off with a password than with a biometric login. All right, then of course iCloud is very popular. Apple will constantly harass you trying to get you to put everything in iCloud because not only do they make money from iCloud, but also 99% of users are going to lose their phone and then freak out and want to buy a new phone and where's my data, and it should have put it in iCloud. Then you could easily sync your new device with iCloud and get all your pictures and data and everything back. And your photographs, of course, may have geotagging where they store the GPS location of each photograph, and that's often very helpful. You have location services, and this has not only GPS data, but also Bluetooth and Wi-Fi can be used to identify where you are, because the identifying MAC addresses of many stationary devices are put in online repositories. Checkmate and Checkra1n are the most recent jailbreaks of an iPhone that let you get root access. They are security flaws in the bootloader, and they were discovered by one of the students in my class here a few years ago. Pretty awesome. Not that I taught him how to do that, but I got him started, and then he rushed way ahead of me. All right. And so Apollo is a tool that pulls out the SQLite databases with some information in the we talked about this before. Mobile apps typically store your data SQLite databases. So if you examine a Mac, there's different ports to connect. You often have to have special cables and such, and then you can identify the device. The biggest hurdle, of course, is encryption. If you don't have the login password, you may not be able to get much of anything off that Mac, and that is by design. All right. And let's take a look at the next bit, which is a little bit about Internet of Things, which is, of course, all those other gadgets. Everything now, from light bulbs, thermostats, refrigerators, everything is now connected to the Internet, and almost all of it is collecting personal data and typically spraying it all over the place insecurely and storing it insecurely. And there's Ron Wyden trying to pass another law trying to do something about a privacy bill of rights. There's essentially no privacy legislation in America. Manufacturers are allowed to just gather all this data and resell it and do anything they want with it here. And a lot of people are mad about it, but nothing has been done much. So getting the data off an IoT device can be quite difficult, of course. There is no standard, there's not standard connectors, there's not standard formats. So it can be a ad hoc procedure to try to figure out a way to get the data off these things. All right, so Shodan is a tool that helps you find insecure devices. Shodan is a search engine that identifies the model of a device and the version of software running on it. So if you discover there's a vulnerability in something, like there's a vulnerability in current versions of Citrix, you can scan and find all the Citrix servers connected to the internet running that version. So it exposes how big the security flaws are and can help bad guys attack them, or good guys find them to kind of notify them and patch them. Alexa is the smart home speaker from Apple, I think. Is that for Amazon? Amazon's Alexa, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Amazon's Alexa. All right. Apple is Siri, right? I don't think Apple has a smart speaker. Maybe they do. I don't have any of this fancy junk. Anyway, Alexa is got to be listening to you all the time to hear if you say the code phrase. And it has been shown that it is in fact sending the data up to Apple, even up to the server, even when it's not supposed to be. And you got fitness trackers and the Apple Watch and all kinds of other devices. Some people install chips. I know the government does this. If you are high-end law enforcement and you travel to Mexico, they do install a tracker on you to try to catch you if you get kidnapped by Mexican cartels. And other people do it just as a stunt. Apple can, if you wear an iPhone, your iPhone is connected to the cloud, it's storing a lot of data, and you can get data from that just like a phone, and therefore it knows where you were, it knows what your pulse rate was and things like that. And of course, a lot of people put cameras in their cars and everywhere, and you can get that data, and your GPS device in your car is recording where you are all the time, and you can get that data. Cars are a wealth of data now. So officers can use the Apple Watch if they want to for the usual stuff to keep track of their physical condition. There's drones all over the place too now. They now have smart holsters, which activate the body camera when you pull the firearm out. And police in China have smart glasses that scan faces and detect them against a database. That's what the Google Glass was supposed to do, but that turned out to be extremely problematic from a privacy point of view, and modern versions don't do that, I think. Now they have the new version of Google Glass coming from Ray-Ban. Ray-Ban has smart glasses, and I don't know if it will do facial recognition. Like I say, in America, facial recognition has been on the decline because of huge scandals. It tends to be wrong, and people tend to get prosecuted for it and such, but when they originally advertised the Google Glass, they said this is what would happen. You'd meet a guy at a party, he smiles at you and immediately tells you his name, his income, his criminal record, and everything else, so you immediately know who you're dealing with. But the actual device, turned out they didn't really want to have those features turned on because that people were real freaked out about the security consequences. And Amazon Ring doorbells are typically connected to police departments. They highly encourage you to do that, and many people do, so the police can just view your Ring doorbell cameras at all times because people just want to know if someone is breaking into their house or stealing the packages off their porch. Police vehicles use this thing called cellular vehicle to everything, a standard for Wi-Fi connectivity and for vehicle-to-vehicle communications. So you connect to the internet, and it can access things. And as you've seen, all police cars now have a tablet in them like a Tesla, so the cops can look up license plates and alerts and all that jazz. And so your vehicle forensics are really important. Now every car has a whole infotainment system that's keeping track of all sorts of things, and that data can be quite useful. If you have some kind of device that you're trying to get data from and you don't have the ability to connect to it and connect the data electronically, you can just take pictures of it. Of course, that's some evidence. And another thing they do is they have dogs sniffing for electronic devices because they're hiding them everywhere. And another thing they don't mention here, which is a big deal, is these Apple RFID ID tags, smart tags, or I forget what they call them, that people put to find their stuff. People often put it in their luggage so they can find out where their luggage really is when the airport loses it, because in many cases the airport will lose it, and when you ask where it is, they will lie to you and tell you it's in Rome when it's really in San Francisco, and you can tell yourself where it is by tracking it. And that's a good idea.
No, you can check it. The iPhone can track it.
Yeah, if you have an iPhone, yeah, your iPhone can track it, and if you lose your iPhone and you have Find My iPhone, you can track it from a Mac or another phone. Yeah.
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 So you can check it on the website whether you lose your phone or anything. So
That's right.
So you actually can find it. You can with the airport line.
The AirTag, that's what it is. Yeah, the AirTag, that's why it's highly recommended to put an AirTag in your luggage so you can independently see where it is and you don't have to trust the luggage handlers because they often make mistakes. One thing they say, which is probably true, is people don't clear off the old stickers, so sometimes they scan the wrong barcode, and that's why they lose it, and that's why they think it is somewhere it isn't. So anyway, it's a good idea to have your own tracking of anything important now that you can get an AirTag for cheap. All right, now this is really amazing. Maybe this machine's infected with malware. The Google on the machine in here keeps on popping up something called personal offer for you that looks like it's coming from Google, and it just keeps piling them up until it covers the screen. Anyway, I'm going to stop this recording. Oh, I got the Cahoots. Let me get them. I'm distracted by the fact that I cannot use my side machine to see the comments anymore because it's just covered with ads all the time. I imagine somebody got infected with malware. Some other teacher seems to keep installing weird stuff on there. Every time I come in, more weird stuff is popping up. Anyway, modern Windows machines are not supposed to be that vulnerable to malware. I think it might be Google operating as expected. Personal offer for you. Anyway, go ahead and join. I'm going to close some of these stupid personal offer things. Speedcheck.org, whatever that is. Some kind of garbage that somebody installed on here. And dogs sense RF. No, I don't think so. No, I think they just smell chemicals that are in the plastic and the batteries and such. No, I don't think they can directly sense the RF. MBAM on that teacher machine. Somebody's got it infected with malware. All right, anyway. All right. All right, so where are the encryption keys? Yep, in the T2 chip, which is the equivalent of the Trusted Platform module on Windows machines. A cryptographic coprocessor with effaceable storage. So what files on the Mac correspond to registry files on Windows? Those are plist files. What feature enforces code signing on a Mac? The gatekeeper. The keychain is just the password storage location. Gatekeeper is the thing that stops you from installing unsigned code. All right, so what do police cars use to reach the internet? Yep, this thing called CEV2X. All right.